Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show 826, Garry and Richard are here. We've got lots to talk about. New builds of Windows 11 to talk about. We've got a new Raspberry Pi, what that means. We've got news on a guest joining us on the show. We've got Microsoft Ignite news and lots more. So let's get straight to Richard and Garry. Richard, good evening.
Good evening, Ian.
Yes, no matter how much messing about I do with light strips to get the perfect look, somehow I just can't get that chiseled Hollywood look, so I'll turn it off. Give it up as a bad job. How are you doing tonight?
I'm really good. How are you? I believe you were at some sort of music thing the other night.
Oh yeah, last night, yeah, I went to watch Level 42 in Blackpool Opera House, and they were absolutely fantastic.
Brilliant.
It was really good, actually. And do you know who the support act was?
Go on.
Johnny Hates Jazz.
Really? Wow.
Yes. Yeah, Shattered Dreams.
Goodness
me. I think it must be one of the first times I've been to a concert where I knew the support act. Normally, they're always someone I've never heard of, apart from when Bird and Sumner supported the Pet Shop Boys. But apart from that, yeah. So, yeah, a bit of Shattered Dreams.
That's an amazing gig. Bird and Sumner supporting the Pet Shop Boys. Wow, that's a fantastic gig. That
was great. Yeah, that was a couple of years ago. Yeah, it was. Yeah. So, but nothing beats Johnny Hates Jazz. Shattered Dreams, Turn Back the Clock, but Level 42, fantastic. So I actually have seen them a few times. I saw them at the Albert Hall in the early 90s, I think. But anyway, very good. And very loud as well, which was good. But yeah, hopefully I don't need a booster. Hopefully my vaccine.
Well, it's too late if you do. I'll tell you that. It's too late now.
Yeah, but. Yeah, it felt like a normal thing, like the old days.
Yeah, well, it's good. I mean, I guess it is. It's just obviously, it's as long as everyone's being a little bit careful around each other, it should be fine. So yeah, fingers crossed. Well, I hope it goes well. I'm off to go and see the Australian Pink Floyd next week. So we'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah, that's such a great gig, and I saw them just before lockdown, I think it was, and they'd updated some of their visuals and the screens and everything with modern images. So, the money images and everything that they've had, which has a lot of political stuff in it, they've updated all that as well. So it's really good, actually. And
of course, they've got the giant inflatable pink kangaroo as well, which always goes down well.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So, yeah, it's great to get back to some of the gigs as well. And, yeah, they had a very nice keyboard set up there. I was showing to my wife, I need more like that. I don't think she agrees, though, for some reason. She thinks I've got enough stuff. Anyway, talking stuff, we've got lots to talk about tonight. We've got new builds. As we record, because we record on Wednesday this week, we've got new builds. So we've got last week, this week. I can talk a little bit more about using the Surface Duo for the last week. So I want to talk meta to you as well.
Oh no, do you?
And I want to ask you what's happening to your favorite brand of VR equipment.
Oh no.
Yeah, and more. So and there's a new Raspberry Pi. In fact, let's start with the new Raspberry Pi, because I saw that last week there's a new Raspberry Pi. You asked me if I ever had bought one. I haven't got one because I'm still playing with my little microcontroller one. So, but what is the new Raspberry Pi?
Well, this is the Pi Zero 2W, which replaces the existing. Well, the existing Pi Zero is still around, because obviously the Raspberry Pi guys make these things for a long time. But it's the updated version of the Pi Zero, which has been in very, very short supply recently. And to be honest, this one is in equally short supply. So if you've not got one, it might be too late. We'll see. But yes, it's effectively, as I understand it, it's taking the guts of the Pi 3. So you've got the 64-bit A53 Cortex chip, which is a quad-core chip. Clocked at 1 gigahertz, and they've stuck that on the Pi Zero board. So it's about 5 times the speed of the previous one. Same form factor, same ports. You've got the same incredibly handy GPIO holes as well, which you need to obviously put pins into. I've been playing with one, and it's a great little device. I mean, it's a shame it's still only 512 megs of RAM, which makes it a bit tricky to run, some types of things, but particularly with that 64-bit chip, it's a shame you haven't got more RAM to play around with. But again, it's only $15, which is more expensive than the Pi Zero, which I think was around the $10 mark or thereabouts. But obviously it's gone up by a third. But it's 5 times faster. It's the same form factor, and it's a really interesting, useful bit of kit, I think. Actually, I wrote a few articles on it last week. I always find it amazing when something that small is that useful, really.
So, what kind of things could you do this? Can you run the full desktop operating system, or is it more for little projects?
Yeah, I mean, I wish you luck trying to get Windows 11 working on it, but certainly, the Raspberry Pi OS works fine, which is Debian based. That runs up, and I was able to run LibreOffice with no real issues at all. The Raspberry Pi team do warn against trying to use browsers on it, although again, I had no problems at all with using Chromium. Although I don't open many tabs. I understand that the more tabs you open, that 512 megs does start to struggle. And obviously, this is not as quick as a Pi 4 or a Pi 400. It's not a speed demon, but you can run it up and it does do things. It works really, really well. I was very surprised by how functional it was and how useful it was. I mean, it's kind of elevated the Pi Zero from being a thing which you could perhaps use for retro gaming and stuff, perhaps into really a general purpose computer. If you don't mind the fact it's not the fastest thing on earth, it's acceptable for most purposes. So it's I have to say I've got nothing bad to say about it, really, apart from the fact that I understand there's not going to be that many made in the first year because of the current ongoing supply chain issues in the IC world.
But it would be great for I've got a Pi 4 that I'm using with that unicorn display had the and also for the e-ink display app. So the unicorn one, I've got the little temperature sensor hooked up to the Arduino temperature sensor that I did last year, hooked up to the Pi, which then displays in nice color on the pixel display. So actually this would be quite a good board for that, because it's only Python that's running. It's nothing complicated.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it would be perfect for that, because effectively, I mean, I think probably a Pi 4 is perhaps overkill. Where someone like me, this is at its heart, I think, really could say it's a Pi 3, really, and that would be more than sufficient. And you've got, as I said, you've got all the input-output ports, you've got the camera port as well, so you've got all the ports you actually need to do stuff. I guess one thing that did make me laugh is because they have kept the board size exactly the same. It's got all the same ports in the same places, so all the cases will still fit. Of course, they may have missed a bit of a trick in that, of course, they've now got, I think, 3 different types of HDMI connector across the Raspberry Pi range, which is unfortunate. This is, of course, is a mini HDMI, so it'll fit in your existing projects fine, because it'll just replace the existing Pi Zero. But I mean, I can also see it, being really useful in sort of like handheld devices like game emulators and things. I can see it opening up a whole range of new possibilities there.
The only thing that one of the things the reason why I didn't bother to straight away, because I'm messing with other stuff, is that even the pins are the sockets on them, aren't they? So that the LCD display which I've got is also socket, so it hasn't got the pins like a full-size Pi.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I mean, it is lacking. It's got the GPIO, but it hasn't got the rest of the pins, because it is a Pi Zero.
So yeah, so I need to get like a
very small form factor.
Yeah, I need for those little. So this has got the socket. So I think, but you can buy the little pins that join. So I guess I could fit the display on it anyway. Just get the little adapter on there, little pins, the pin out. So I think you could probably just buy them a little block. But yeah, it looks great little device, and a great way to experiment. I mean, the SD card costs you more than the Pi, which
it's ridiculous. I mean, you kind of think this thing is $15, and it's just it's a proper computer now. It's a 1 gigahertz, half gigabyte of RAM machine. With wireless Bluetooth, it's hard to be critical of it, really. Whereas the 4 had a few issues at start where it ran a bit hot. This it's a Raspberry Pi 3 chip, so it doesn't run hot either. It's to about, I mean, I got it to about 39 degrees Celsius, which again, you can passively cool that quite happily.
Yeah, that's great for trying little projects, and as we mentioned before, it's great for perhaps if you wanted to give your kids one just to mess about with.
I mean, I guess one thing I could criticise is it is a shame that you do have to get the pins if you want to use the GPIO stuff for project work. I mean, that's the same as with the existing Pis here, but I did think that was a shame. But apart from that, you know, that's really being a bit picky, I suppose. I mean, the other thing that they kept as well, of course, it's completely flat on the underside, so you could mount it onto a non-conductive surface as well, which you can do with the Pi Zero. So it's good to see that's kept as well.
Yeah, great little thing that, and yeah, if you can get hold of one, I know you mentioned in your article, you know, there would be a good stocking filler if you can get one.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I understand they have been selling like hotcakes because there was quite a bit of pent up demand for the Pi Zero. So I think when this thing appeared, people were quite keen to get hold of it. So I do understand they're selling fast. I think the plan is to do something like 400,000 the first year if they can. But the foundation are constrained by the supply chain.
Yeah. Well, great little thing to get hold of that. So yeah, definitely recommend playing one of those. And these little things are great, fun to play with. I would recommend as well, if you're going to get something like that, get a temperature sensor or an e-ink display or a light strip or something, because as soon as you put something physical on these things, you can have so much fun with them.
Yeah, or I'd say or a build hat and lots of Lego tech, which is what I'm playing with at the moment. That's brilliant, that is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can really. I mean, I've spent ages messing about with this little light thing, and it's got a tiny little Raspberry Pi chip on there, but it's great. It is good fun doing all this kind of stuff.
Excellent.
At the other end of the spectrum, I will give you an update on how I've been getting on with the Duo 2. Actually, I think I already mentioned this last week, but I've getting on with it really well, actually, unsurprisingly, because I like the original Duo, really. So it's not a shock, but because this has fixed many of the issues. I go out and take pictures just with this now. Pictures are great on it. NFC's on there, so yeah, and battery's great as well. I think I've been impressed how smooth it is as well. So yeah, I'm really enjoying using that. So when I've been out, of course, I was out the other weekend doing photo comparisons. So I took out the Duo 2, and the Galaxy Note. And as I was walking with the family, and I said, right, Scott, we're going to take a picture now. They were getting fed up waiting for me because I'm trying to take a picture on 3 phones at the same time now to try to get the comparison shot. So I have done those, and I will have a video of those at some point. And I started doing the video for it, and the Photos app, I think I've blown the mind of the Photos app on my laptop too. I think I need to reinstall the Photos app because it just constantly crashes now when I'm trying to open the photos. It freezes, then crashes, or says you don't have permission to view this file, and then crashes. So I've broken it. So I need to fix that. But I am really enjoying using this last night. So yeah, some good pictures of level 42 taken on the Duo. Now, I mentioned briefly last week about getting someone from the Insider team on. That's definitely on now. So in a couple of weeks. So I need questions from listeners. So if you've got questions that you want to put to Windows Insider team, if you could, viewers, if you could send those to me in at thedigital-lifestyle.com or on Twitter at @ISDixon or on YouTube comments, however you want to do it, please send those in. I've got to collect them all together and send them over to Microsoft so we can use it with our discussion. So yeah, just don't ask about release dates or anything like that, but you can ask anything you want, and I'll send them over. So please send those over, and we can include them on the show in a few weeks' time. We did get some new builds from the Windows Insider team. In fact, since we recording on a Wednesday, we had a build on a Wednesday. So we had one last week, and we've got one this week. Still nothing too exciting in these builds, though, yet, is there?
Well, I guess unless you're a Teams user, of course.
Yes. So we've got two different. So the build this week has a mute button in the Teams in the title bar down at the bottom here. So maybe I can show you that off, and I'll share the screen. So let's talk about last week's build first. We're going reverse chronological order. Again, they added a new feature and then said only a few insiders are getting this. So this is the new your Microsoft account page that was in build 22489. I don't suppose you've seen that, because I'm not sure anybody's actually seen that feature yet.
You know what? I've not actually. I was quite surprised, because it seems like a fairly obvious thing to put in there, because at the moment you have to drop up into a portal to manage your Microsoft account. Yeah. So it seemed, I'm not sure why they have chosen to do it with such a small header when it's but yes, I don't know anyone who's got it yet.
Yeah, so no, and here's Garry joining us. Good evening.
Good evening. Sorry about the delay getting on. Teams was doing its usual.
Me too.
Oh, we've had a battle with Teams at the start of the show already as well. So things are just as normal.
I've been on Skype.
I've been on Ignite, so I was on a different tenant, so I had to switch tenants to get on here, and it just didn't want to change over. So.
Yeah. Well, we've discussed the Raspberry Pi, but we're now just discussing the new builds from last week with the Your Account page feature, but I don't think anybody's got that yet, because it went out to a small subset of users.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
So that's what it should like. I've got a picture of it on here. Actually, I'm not sharing that screen, so I'll share that screen. So yeah, it's not a. There was not a huge amount of changes in there, but there was this little screen that shows you your account, which is good, because you have to go to, I think it's account.microsoft.com, and then you can go look at your subscriptions in there.
Yes. I think that's actually quite a good idea to be able to see.
Yeah, I think so. I was just saying, I don't understand why they've decided to make that feature they do an A/B test on.
Yeah, they seem to be doing a lot of that at the moment, and we'll come to that for this week's build as well. There was a few other things in there, some fixes and everything else, usual set of changes.
I mean, I think the most interesting thing in 22489 was the DNS over HTTPS improvements, which is the discovery of designated resolvers. And that's kind of, it's just a bit more hardening of the OS against nasties and being redirected to bad places. So that I thought was an interesting enhancement. I'm sure we'll see that filter through quite quickly elsewhere.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, we got a build this week as well, 22494.
Yeah. Now, do you reckon? Can you hear the lawyers sharpening their knives at this one? Because this is a real. Ooh, okay. This is the one. So the big thing in this build is the muting and unmuting a microphone from the taskbar during a Teams call, which is fine, except Teams isn't the only tool people use. They use Google Meet, they use Slack, they use all kinds of things. So shoving that. I mean, it was bad enough when they put the Teams Meet now on the taskbar. But this is kind of. I mean, unless I'm mistaken, this only works for Teams, doesn't it?
Yes, and it only works for the paid business enterprise education version. It doesn't work on the version that is pushed onto the taskbar in Windows 11.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I'm not sure about this function at all, if I'm honest. I mean, what I prefer to see them really is put more of the PowerToys stuff in there, because the PowerToys mute function is actually working pretty well now. The function you can basically switch off all video, bang, it's gone. Quite like that. Whereas this seems to be quite, I don't know. It's an interesting feature, as you say. It's perhaps not entirely baked. One might call it half baked. But this is obviously we are talking the dev channel build here, so it is a preview of Windows 11. But yeah, the fact it's tied directly into Teams, I'm not sure. That feels a bit iffy to me.
I'm surprised it just didn't make it, because the microphone icon shows up there, doesn't it, as a part of the effective security, so you know that your microphones are used. So I'm just surprised they just didn't build it all into that and be a global control.
Exactly. Just turn off mic, because that's really what you want. It's just why else would you need to leave the mic running unless you're recording yourself while you're muted in a conference, perhaps? I don't know. I can't imagine a time I'd be doing that, but I suppose it's possible.
Yeah, perhaps like you said, this is on the dev channel. It's just for this application. Maybe it's just one version of Teams. Maybe the next build will be all versions of Teams, and the one after that will be Teams, Zoom, Google Meet. Maybe they're just working on the app that they're controlling at the moment.
Yeah.
We'll see. Apart from that, the other thing that is quite interesting is the Alt tab. It gives you the option of doing the snap groups.
Oh yes, yeah. Although again, that's an AB, isn't it?
Yeah, and I've just actually got my machine updated to the new build, and I haven't got it. So
yes, mine is currently downloading as we speak.
Yeah, so I've not got that. So yeah, apart from that, there's all the usual fixes and all the other stuff in there. So yeah, at the moment, Dev Channel's not getting a lot of exciting new features, as the beta channels has got.
Still no sign of the Windows subsystem of an official Windows subsystem for Android either in the Dev Channel.
Yeah, which is surprising because it's working really well in the beta channel. I've had quite a bit of fun playing around with Android apps. All side-loaded, of course, because there's no access to the Amazon store from the UK. But I've still, I think I mentioned last week, I've got Arlo and I've got the Switchbox, all the smart home ones, really. Actually, the ones that I've got working. Especially Philips Hue, which is I quite often want to adjust the lights while I'm working with my laptop downstairs. So yeah, I've got that. So it works great for that. So I recorded a little video showing you how I've been doing it, and that's on our YouTube channel. So yeah, it works all right actually. A few people have said to me, I'm not quite sure how much I'd actually use it, but which is true. But anyway, it's there and it works. So I quite enjoyed that.
Yeah, I mean, I
enjoyed that feature.
I mean, I think what you described there is one really good use for it, which is home automation stuff. If you're using, home automation camera apps that traditionally always tend to need a phone, would be a lot easier to run those through the desktop when there isn't a web app version of which for many there aren't. I mean, thinking, for example, I think Blink that doesn't work particularly well on the web either.
Yeah. Yeah, I think smart home is the one area where I think there is potential that for things like that. So
if it works, had a division called, I don't know, electronic e-home.
Yeah, that was a good thing. I just remember that.
But then they need a centre in the home to look after all your media. What could that be called?
It could be called Sky Glass.
I'm not bitter.
Yes. It's still a shame, isn't it? So yeah, it is a shame that, but never mind. So anyway, so if you wanted to look at Android apps, I've got that working, and there's not a lot of hoops you have to jump through, to be honest, if you just side loading. But of course, side loading has its risks, so you just got to be careful what you're doing, because I suppose you're not going through the proper app certification, so you have to take that into account. Now, I wanted to ask you about Meta, because and virtual conferences and things. We've had quite a few things from this week. So, first of all, I want to ask, Richard, is the Oculus brand going?
Yeah, it's going. Yeah, I mean, there was a certain inevitability that it would go at some point. Obviously, they couldn't call it the Facebook Quest or the Facebook Rift, but with the renaming of Facebook to Meta, it looks like the Oculus brand is going to go away next year and be called Meta. So it'll be Meta Quest and whatever else. As I understand it, I think it's going to happen next year. But I believe, and again, correct me if misunderstood, you won't need your Facebook account to use the devices anymore, because one of the big hoo-has in the last couple of years was the shift to having to use a Facebook account, which caused lots of grief. So I don't think you will need that anymore to use them. But yeah, it looks like the Oculus brand is going away, and it's going to all be Meta from now on.
And this is interesting that I wonder if it's going to be like an Alphabet thing where, as much as Alphabet, they did the renaming, everybody still calls them Google.
Yeah, I mean, I think
very few.
Yeah, I mean, I think the renaming. I mean, I'd love to know what happened inside Microsoft when this happened, because obviously this happened days before Ignite. It's all a bit awkward now. But yes, it's I mean, the Facebook brand, let's face it, has become perhaps a little toxic among some of the target audience of Facebook. So I can see why they'd want to rename it. I mean, with Google's renaming to Alphabet, it was perhaps done for slightly different reasons, but I think certainly for Facebook, it makes sense to try and distance itself from that Facebook name, because it has got some unfortunate connotations now due to some of the issues and some of the it's perhaps not, it's almost become the thing that maybe the likes of you or me or people's parents or grandparents would use, as opposed to the younger audience who look at other tools. So I can see it makes sense. And so yeah, so Facebook is to be called Meta from now on, with an interesting logo. And of course that's going to move on to Oculus, which is I'm sad to see Oculus go. I mean, I know that Facebook bought it years ago, and it was bound to happen. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sad.
And do you think this is it? Does this push them towards is this where them pushing towards VR and AR and all that kind of thing has been the next platform? Is Oculus actually going to be the next, the next big thing for Facebook, going away from their?
Well, I think so. I mean, the metaverse. I mean, it's one of those wonderful buzzwords that seems to mean different things depending which person you talk to. But it's kind of like a collection of metadata in the world, and in this instance, they're using it as a virtual reality platform. So you pop things on, you'd be in metaverse, which looks a lot like Outspace, if I'm honest, and see other users with their avatars and wander around and explore the metaverse via your Meta Quest 2 headset or Quest Pro when that comes out. Yeah, I'm finding it hard to get too enthused, because I don't know, if I'm honest, that many young people that would happily wear an Oculus Quest headset. I mean, that's all seems like an older person thing, really. They tend to be attached to phones or tablets, rather than stopping to put an entire headset on, make space around to do the VR thing. So I'm not sure I fully understand it, if I'm honest.
And Garry, didn't Microsoft announce something this week? Was metaverse kind of thing for at Ignite?
Yeah, metaverse for Teams. So we'll all be able to just get on our Teams call and appear in cartoon form.
Wasn't that called Comic Chat about 25 years ago?
Oh, Richard's showing his age.
I like Comic Chat. It was great. Yeah. So that was where you'd have your avatar, which wasn't really you, and it would appear that people
into a little comic strip. It was brilliant. That
So yeah. I mean, Garry. I mean, did you have any insights into how? Was Microsoft aware of what Facebook was going to do and vice versa? Because the whole thing seems to be very, I mean, you can see the companies going to be butting against each other. Microsoft's obviously got Altspace, and Facebook has its thing, and it's all about Meta and Metaverse, and oh dear.
Well, the Metaverse stuff had come out of Facebook before they did this Meta renaming. They were already talking quite a bit about that. So I'd be surprised if Microsoft wasn't aware that was coming.
Yeah. I mean, certainly. A few months back, Huawei we're again talking about the metaverse as a way of another application for 5G. So because of the large amounts of data you've got to stream around.
Yeah, and something like this thing they've announced, Teams, doesn't sort of come out overnight. There's actual substance to it. It's not just a bit of marketing spiel. So they've obviously been planning that a while. So I don't think they were taken totally by surprise by the whole thing, and obviously they want to compete in that space, because, as you say, they've got all this stuff they've already purchased, and they want to make some.
Well, yeah, I mean, it strikes me that Microsoft are in many ways probably quite far ahead, because they have Outspace, they have Teams, that they have all the, and they've also got the HoloLens stuff as well, to do the augmented reality. I mean, although as I understand it, the avatars, you don't actually need a VR headset to throw up an avatar and study yourself on the camera, do you?
No, you can just do an avatar, which is good. I mean, it sounds like it could work quite well. A bit of an extension on the gallery, the views which they started putting out, which are somewhat limited in what you could actually do with them. But yeah. So I think the it's going to be interesting to see how it actually works in practicality. Whether it's actually any use, and whether people actually do it. But I mean, if you look at what's been a huge success story for Microsoft over the last 3 years, it's got to be Teams. I mean, Teams is massive, and it's become. I mean, certainly where the projects I'm working on now, everywhere, everything's just based in Teams. You don't tend to leave Teams. If everything can plug into Teams, you plug into Teams, and that's it. So yeah,
I've seen the same thing where we were using Skype and different Confluence and Jira and lots of different stuff, and it's just everything's migrating itself, even shared drives and everything's old servers into Teams, and you just stay in Teams now. And there's more and more, especially using Power Automate and things like that. You can bring you can virtually create systems within Teams now.
Yeah.
Well, you can create systems within Teams, and I'm just not sure. So these sort of virtual avatars, these animated ones, is this using your camera feed to the real time animate them based on what it thinks you're doing?
There's some of that in what they said. I mean, it is a little bit vague, some of what they've talked about. But it did seem to be. It did mention face tracking, and it did mention using the Microsoft AI technology. So I mean, you can imagine they could do that sort of stuff like that. I mean, some of the stuff they're doing on AI at the moment is incredible. So, and I mean, if you look at some of the new video tools they've just announced the last couple of days, and some of the stuff they're doing on that, and the analysis they can actually do of so like they could actually analyze this podcast, for example, and come up with the subject matter of the podcast, even if we hadn't actually spoken about it, but if we've spoken around it.
Wow.
Even if we hadn't actually mentioned Azure or mentioned Microsoft or in the conversation, but we talked about Windows and talked about that, they would have said, "Oh, the subject matter is Microsoft," and so it's really clever what they can do now, and that sort of stuff. You could see how that could be used to produce a pretty interesting avatar experience.
Yeah, sure. I mean, as I understand it, the initial one is all about listening, isn't it? As opposed to using the camera to see what you're doing. It's listening to your voice, to animate the avatar.
But the interesting thing is, one of the things they have talked about is allowing you to place that avatar in your real office, even if you're working from home, and interact with the real office using the camera.
That's what I did when we first started. I took a picture of my office, and when I first started working from home, I used that as my backdrop. So yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. So
I wonder what's the drive to these virtual avatars. Is it because people don't want to be seen in camera or can't be seen in camera? And I'm not quite sure
I mean, there's substantial meeting fatigue. That's undeniable. People are getting, we're 18 months into this now, and people are getting tired of being on camera. So I think that's part of it. It's more convenient. I mean, right now my camera's off, for example, because my shed's an absolute bomb site. So I'm sparing you from the side of that. So
that's what virtual backgrounds are for.
I'm afraid it can't. But virtual backgrounds can only cover so many sins, Gary.
You haven't too much.
And my sins are sins of too much Lego. So,
and you don't like getting dressed for podcasts.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, I'm actually naked right now. So I'm not naked right now.
Thanks for clarifying that.
But yeah, so it deals with meeting fatigue, but of course, it's perhaps also maybe a stepping stone to making headsets and things and augmented reality less alien, because the ideal is, we did the Alt Spacing a while ago, which I actually really enjoyed. I really like that, and I can see, while we may not all be going back into the office full time anytime soon for all of us, this sort of thing would allow you to feel like you're participating more than just looking at a video window on a screen. So, I mean, it's also, I mean, we should also be clear. They were showing this tech off. It's not going to hit until the first half of next year, and Microsoft has a somewhat patchy reputation when it comes to delivering features on time. So, I think it's their vision of the future, but it's something which you can imagine is actually going to really happen.
Yeah. So, Ignite, was there anything else sort of that was sort of consumery that was interesting?
Not yet. I mean, there's still a day or so, or some announcements to come out today, which may be consumerish. But I haven't seen those yet. But nothing really hit me as being sort of. I mean, there's some tweaks to Teams and stuff which might be quite interesting, but nothing really consumerish. Lots of interesting business stuff. Some really powerful things coming on the Azure platform, or Azure platform, which will help businesses produce some pretty quick turnaround on rolling up infrastructure and trying things out. So I can see that being quite good. But yeah, it's nothing.
It's
nothing
not really a consumer show, is it?
No, but it could lead into stuff which builds for consumers effectively. But yeah, nothing yet. But Ignite's not meant to be a consumer-based project. I mean, obviously Teams comes in because we all use it in consumerish ways now, but the other stuff's not so much.
Although, Garry, I couldn't help but note that they've started using the word Microsoft Mesh as well. And I don't know about you, but I thought Mesh was a different product.
Yes.
Live Mesh.
Well, it's kind of, it's kind of what large chunks of Azure are built on. So I was a little surprised to see that name appear, that name appear as well. So maybe some confusion around code names and product names, or there'll be there has been a lot of renaming has happened at Ignite too, but again, mainly for corporate stuff. And you win a prize if you can work out how Azure licensing works these days.
I think you win a prize if you can understand any Microsoft licensing.
But that's going very corporate now. So.
Having tried to acquire two SQL licenses for a virtual machine, your mind's blown on what you need to try and figure that out.
Oh, well, good luck with SQL Server 2022 then. Have you applied for the private preview?
No, I haven't. No.
It's got some good toys in there. But again, I mean, you can really tell that Microsoft are pushing hard to get people into the cloud, or into their cloud. Really, really pushing hard. It's getting harder and harder to run this stuff without having some kind of connection to Azure, and they make it very easy.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I know. I wish really. Well, yeah, getting very enterprise, but I mean, as an IT manager, you want everything in the cloud. Things that are on-prem and just, they just have they don't have the same resilience. I think, the off-site cloud, you worry about the hosting, that kind of thing. We'll worry about the application side of it. So yeah, I think the days of on-prem servers, definitely numbered. Some application vendors insist on them still, but I think they're going to be few and far between.
Although speaking of cloud, I was delighted to see that at long last they've announced that there is going to be a Windows and ARM OneDrive client, which is that's really important for storage in the cloud. A native OneDrive client. It's been 2 years since the Surface Pro X came out, but hey, almost here at last. You
can run it on your M1. And I'll be able to run it on Raspberry Pi 400 as well.
There's a very good chance I'll be able to run it on the M1 in macOS before Windows and ARM gets it. Which is, I understand why it is what it is, but it's because obviously Apple are moving all their hardware to the M1 line, whereas Microsoft is still, I don't know, Windows and ARM almost feels like a hobby thing for the desktop. I'm perhaps expecting more is going to happen in the data center where ARM chips are. Perhaps make more sense than Microsoft World. I don't know.
I think until we see a Surface Go running the ARM, I think that's will be perhaps a point where we know that they're really serious about ARM, because that's what it really needs. This, small form factor Surface with always on connectivity.
Yeah.
That to me seems to be the device that would suit ARM better than the Surface Pro range, because you've got a perfectly good Surface Pro device, whereas the Go 3s are that perfect form factor for that small sort of low power always on connectivity. So yeah, hopefully a Surface Go 4 would be, but we said that last year, didn't we, that if there should be a Surface Go 3 that's ARM, and that, especially with Windows 11, and it just never happened. So
Yeah, I mean, I think what's more worrying, again, Gary, from a developer standpoint, you might know more, but I think we're still waiting for this lightweight Qualcomm desktop box, aren't we, to do Windows development, or was that now appeared?
I haven't seen one.
No, exactly, and that should have been here months ago, and the complete disappearance of that, from what I can see, because no one seems to have heard of it. Please email if you got one, and I'd love to hear more about it. That worries me a bit, because it's like you need to get the devs on board, and I don't know. I mean, I wonder if Microsoft's got other plans for its ARM tech.
Possibly, yeah. I just think Intel are doing quite a good job with the processor at the moment, so perhaps there's less pressure to push ARM now because Intel are competing pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, and also, I mean, if you look at the Pro, if you look at the Pro X, until recently, almost all of the applications you want to use it, you had to run in Intel emulation. At which point you've negated all the point of having the ARM. Power consumption things, battery, or performance all drop. At which point, a Pro 8 makes more sense. So I'm not sure who's buying the Pro X's at the moment when the Pro 8 does such a good job.
Yeah, I think I think I would go for a Pro 8 over the X, just because of the versatility of the. You just know that whatever you throw at the Pro 8, it will take. Whereas the X, you've got specific use cases that will work really well on it, but there are some other things that might not, and you don't know exactly envisage what they'll be yet. But with a Pro 8 that it doesn't matter because it'll handle it.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I still like the look of the Pro 8. But yeah, my laptop 2 is doing its job now, so I'll stick with that for now. Although there are rumours that they're bringing out, there could be a really cheap, possibly not even a Surface, but a cheap laptop from Microsoft for the education market. So
yeah, I heard that.
I'm interested to see if that happens.
But didn't we have that recently? Wasn't that what the Surface Laptop Go or whatever it was called? Wasn't that it? No,
I think this is going to be
even cheaper.
Cheaper and running Windows 11 SE.
Oh no! Okay.
Yes, which is not Windows 11S or Windows 11 in S mode. It's a different thing. This is all specifically designed for education. I guess it's to compete against Chromebooks in the US. So, cheap chip, plastic, cheap as chips and plastic.
I mean, I guess and everything. I mean, I guess one of the things about Windows and that is you think, well, at this point, why would they bother? Because I mean, Windows is fine. But I mean, the generation coming through now probably more accustomed to using Android and iOS devices. Windows is almost a legacy. It is a legacy operating system, which is why I think Teams and things works over so many different platforms. So I mean, I wonder if there's different factions with Microsoft, doing different things here, because you kind of feel like the Teams approach is, well, we're going to go where the business is. That's the Microsoft 365 approach. Whereas, excuse me, whereas the Windows approach is everything must run on Windows, which is kind of almost the old Microsoft style working. I don't know. I mean, Gary, what do you feel about that?
Yeah, I certainly see where you're coming from. When it was a generational thing, it was definitely there, and I think that you always know there's pull in different directions within Microsoft, and you've got all the different teams. We're sometimes working almost in competition internally. And you can
Visual Studio.
That.
Yeah. Yes, Visual Studio. Yeah. VS Code. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see if a cheap one comes out, and if it is, whether it is branded Surface, and even whether it's actually available to consumers at all, or whether it would just be purely education market, and it's not something that you would see in, say, PC World. That the laptop Go is the low cost thing from Microsoft for that, a lower cost, I should say.
Sure, I guess we'll see.
Well, Gary, do you have a recording for us this week?
So this week, yeah. So I will be talking to the real luminaries of the EV world. Jonathan Porter, who's quite famous in the EV world for being probably the first second-hand EV salesman. but in a very, very nice way. And he's got a very, very interesting business model. But and he talks about the second-hand EV market, which is really important. I think the whole people, obviously we talk a lot about new EVs and electric vehicles, but not everybody can afford one of them. And there are a lot of good second-hand EVs on the market now. Now, actually, to be honest, not a lot of people can afford them as well, because the second-hand EV market has gone crazy in the last few months. And I talked to Jonathan about that, and also James from James and Kate YouTube channel, who we've spoken to quite a few times, is on, and he said this time talking about how you can get your EV serviced, which is quite an interesting concept, because it's certainly something that's been brought up on TV programs recently, that there's been possibly in traditional dealers a lack of training for people to actually handle EVs and batteries. There's not actually much mechanical on an EV. It's obviously a lot simpler than an internal combustion engine, but obviously you do need to be able to maintain the motors and the batteries, which doesn't take a lot, but you just need to have the skills to do that. And James talks about his latest adventure at that sphere, which is quite interesting. So I will have those 2 interviews for you today.
Excellent. Well, I've come with it at the end of the show.
Yeah.
Right, and so I think that's just about everything we've got then for this week. So I did mention earlier on, Garry, in the show, we have got our interview with someone from the Windows Insider team coming up in a few weeks. So we do need those questions coming in. So fire those across to us, and we can include them in that chat. It'll be in a couple of weeks' time. So in the meantime, Richard, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter as @Richard_Speed, and also doing some serious playtime with a Pi 02.
Excellent. We want to see the results out of that. Garry, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Garry WMA. It's Garry with 2 R's.
Excellent stuff. Well, we'll be back same time, same play next week. Now it's got Gary's another one of Gary's brilliant interviews. Got some good feedback on those. So we'll see you next week.
Cool. Jonathan, thanks for joining us.
Garry, thanks for asking me.
Well, it's brilliant to get you on the show at last. I mean, we've chatted a lot on Twitter. Our mutual friends and James and James and Kate. But yeah, it's a long time coming to get you on. And I have to say, you're reasonably famous in the EV world. If anybody wants to get a second-hand EV, this is the man to talk to.
Yeah.
for definite.
Yeah.
But let's talk about your journey to get here to start with.
Yes.
That's quite, for a lot of people, that sounds like something that's almost impossible.
Yeah. So now, originally from Leicester, but moved to Orkney in 2013. But yeah, I've driven from Orkney to Leicester, or from Leicester to Orkney now 46 times. Since 2013, in everything from a Mitsubishi i-MiEV with a 50-mile range, right up to obviously a Tesla with a 300-mile range, and everything in between. So I love to not just talk the talk about EVs and their usability and distance, but actually just walk the walk and use social media just to say, I'm on my way back to Orkney and I'm doing a long trip. So that's what gives me the biggest buzz, is getting bums on seats, because this stuff is important. To stop burning stuff to get from A to B.
And I wasn't being flippant earlier. You are probably one of the people who actually developed the EV industry more than anybody else.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but I appreciate the comment.
No, but I actually think seriously, because I think without the stuff you've been doing on the second-hand market, I don't think there would have been a second-hand market for EVs initially. I mean, it would have come now because of the fact that we're starting to get past the tipping point. It's going to be there, but you've really pushed it that initially.
Yeah.
How did you get into doing that?
So my business was Eco Cars. I set up in 2004. Before that, I was sort of connected with the motor industry, doing valeting and other things behind the scenes. But in 2004, I went on my own, and the name of my business, Eco Cars, it denoted that I sold eco cars that were, to a degree, eco-friendly. So primarily it was initially hybrids and also LPG, so liquid petroleum gas fuel vehicles, biofuel vehicles. So did that up to 2009, 2010. Primarily was the London market, because they were congestion charge exempt at the time. Had a go in a Nissan Leaf in 2011, 2012, where I first met Robert, because there was an event down at Battersea. Had a go in the Nissan Leaf, came home and said to my wife, I've just definitely driven the future. I want to be one of the first used EV dealers, independent, in the UK. And at that moment in time, I was. Other dealerships thought I was mad. Didn't think there was a future in it. You know, auctioneers through an auction saying you'll need a long lead with this, lads. You know. So yeah, that's basically where I started.
And how does it work with that? I think you buy from auction, is that right?
Yeah, so buy to order. I used to stock a number of vehicles, but trying to be conscious of my footprint, being based on Orkney, you know, I buy a Nissan Leaf, get it transported up to Aberdeen docks, then on the ferry, then get it to Orkney, advertise it, someone will come along, oh, that's a very nice silver Leaf, but I'd really like a red one.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know, there's got to be a better way of doing this. And the other thing I did a number of times, I'd get it all the way up to Orkney and then sell it to a couple in Bristol or Cornwall. And I'm like, this footprint of moving this car around is just not good. So that's where the whole buy to order idea came from. We've just been open and honest. This is what the cars cost. This is the transport. We put £300 plus VAT on top as our profit margin. Whether it's a £5,000 Leaf or a £100,000 Tesla, we just take £300 margin. And I think traditionally the motor trade has always been seen as an Arthur Daly type industry, where it's all very smoke and mirrors, sheepskin coat. So I just thought, you know what, let's just be open and honest. And strangely enough, Garry, people like honesty. So, you know, people listening, well, he's bound to say he's bought it for £5,000, but he's really bought it for £3,000. No, show them the invoice from the leasing company or the auction house, show them the invoice for transport and the ferry, and show them my invoice showing £300 more. Can't get any more open than that. No, and it's gone down really well.
It's a great model. I mean, it's a great model from your point of view, because take some of the hassle out of it, but it's a great model from the end buyers of the models as well, because they're getting a bargain in lots of places.
Yeah, and the great thing about buying used electric vehicles is from auction. Obviously I don't physically attend the auction, it's all online now, but unlike a traditional ICE vehicle, there's no clutch for me to check, there's no fluids, there's no exhaust system. Well, you know the role. So buying blind, all I've got to know is where are the chips and marks, what's the depth of the tyre tread, and does it start and move? That's it with an EV. So it makes the whole buying experience for me virtually foolproof, and especially for the customer, because they know exactly what they're getting.
It's brilliant. And then I think also to talk about EVs and reliability, do you check the batteries?
So with most auction houses, like the Nissan Leaf for instance, you may see a shot of the dashboard showing the capacity bars, but some auction houses are getting a little bit more up to date with regard to what we need to see. In fact, I did a YouTube video about 3 years ago that I sent to all the auction houses saying, look, this is what we need to see as used EV dealers. We need to see this, this and this, and cables, etc. So some have come on board with that, but as regards checking the actual capacity and state of health of the battery, it's not possible yet. And most auction houses are reluctant to plug any aftermarket diagnostic equipment to get a true reading. But as we all know, a number of EVs are virtually bomb-proof. There's only certain EVs from a certain car maker with an N at the beginning and an N at the end that may have serious degradation. So certainly like the Nissan Leaf 30 kilowatt, you've just got to be wary of early degradation.
I mean, certainly more modern EVs, you wouldn't be worrying about that.
With thermal management in place, you know, it's not a concern.
That's good. So there's something else you're very heavily involved in, Reflex Auckland.
Yeah. So an exciting project backed by the UKRI. So it's a £28.5 million project to get people to get into electric vehicles at a reduced cost. And working with Drive Electric, who I've known for the best part of 15 years, they're the partners in the project. So it's been a grant of around £4,000 off the cost of the lease over the term of the actual contract, in order to make it more affordable for people to make the switch. It's gone down really well on Orkney, because those that have leased an electric vehicle, they like the idea of not being tied into it for 2 or 3 years, because they think in 2 or 3 years time the technology will be that much better. They're not obviously laying out a massive capital, so that's been really good. Part of the Reflex project is an integrated energy system. helping to balance the grid, so it's reducing the carbon footprint of heating, lighting, transport, etc. The main thrust has been the car side, but there's also plans to introduce battery storage and solar and ways to help people reduce their energy cost and their footprint. Mainly because Orkney has a unique problem, is that since 2013 over 100% of all the electricity that's produced on Orkney, from wind, tidal, little bit of solar, over 100% since 2013 has been from renewables. So that I think last year was 125, 126%. We make too much of the stuff. No one wants to pay for a fatter cable from Orkney to Caithness, it's the top of Scotland, because it's going to cost billions. No one wants to pay for it. So spreading that excess via having more electric cars, more storage batteries is one of the answers that this project is looking to address. And also when the wind isn't blowing, which isn't very often on Orkney, to be able to feed that stored energy back into the grid to stop those peaks and troughs. So it's a really exciting project because it's seeing EVs not just as transport but as mobile battery storage devices with vehicle to grid.
Yeah, obviously vehicles to grid at the moment is fairly restricted in the number of vehicles that can be on, but hopefully that's going to change, especially with the new CCS stuff coming out and everything going on. And obviously there's vehicle to load as well now, which I don't know if you can make use of that in any way, because it's not quite so easy to put that back in.
Yeah, so at the minute it's just limited to the Nissan Leaf with a CHAdeMO connector for the two-way capability. So I think initially they're looking at, we're working with Zappi as the preferred home charger. So again, that's integrated into the Reflex platform where they'll be able to stagger the charging and just again help balance the charging of the EVs. But it's been really successful, and it's set to run through till next June, July 2022. And as a business, it's been set up as a business, Reflex. If it's proved that the model works, they're looking to roll it out on Shetland, the Western Isles, and ultimately other, for the time being, island communities. So they're looking at Anglesey, Isle of Man, the Isle of Wight, and then hopefully run it out through the rest of the UK. So it's,
I mean, Orkney's always been ahead of the game, really, I think.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the videos you did it many years ago. There's some stuff going on. I remember James coming across to see you on the video, and it's amazing that a smallish island, it's not that small, but it's how much you've done. I guess that's probably because of the resources you've got around you. As you say, you're making far too much energy.
And there's EMEC, which is like a testing station for all renewables with regard to wind and tide, and that's a world centre for testing technology, because we get pretty rough weather on Orkney and really strong tides, so that's the place to test things to destruction and learn from it, and then build the next model of water turbine that will be so much better. So it's there's a lot going on.
So how are you finding the uptake on EVs on Orkney now?
It's when I moved there in 2013, there was 7 EVs, mostly run by the council, and then as of now there's around 500. So we've got 10,000 vehicles, so we're at about 5%. So there's still lots to do. The Reflex will help make that more affordable for more people, but being an island community, it's word of mouth, and we've seen that as the first few EVs have come on. We've actually physically handed over around 60. We've got about 120 on order. Those 60 people have come in and inquired, not because they've seen the advert in the local paper or through social media or the Reflex website. It's from their neighbour and their friend at work. So the word of mouth is a very strong influencer on Orkney, and I would say out of every 10 inquiries, I'd say at least 8 are from people that know someone who's just had an EV via the project. So that's just how the uptake works in an island community, particularly on Orkney.
It's very interesting to see that. We're going to have to come pay you a visit at some point.
Oh, definitely, you'll love it.
Do some a full-blown article and stuff on it. Obviously, we've been limited on time on these interviews, but we'll get you back on anyway.
Yeah, it'd be great,
Gary. Do that a bit longer than that. yeah. So, future. Where do you see things going?
Ooh, where do I see things going? I think in the motor industry with EVs, I think we've gone past the tipping point.
Yeah,
I think it's just becoming a standard now. I think on the used side, we're in a unique position where there's a lack of supply, because there's a lack of supply of new cars from leasing companies. So there's a lack of supply of used at auction. And if there's more demand and lack of supply, it does one thing: it just pushes the price up.
Yeah.
And I've seen some crazy increases in prices. I was chatting with James Coates just a couple of days ago about that. A Renault Zoe, just to give you an example, I bought him a Renault Zoe on a 15 plate two and a half years ago, and I got it for £5,000. I was offered a 15 plate Zoe from Arval direct, so it wasn't via an auction, via the leasing company. Same car on a 15 plate. The starting price was £10,500.
Oh, that's crazy, isn't it?
So it's 22 kilowatt hour Zoe.
Yeah.
But that's just, it's great for the environment because the demand's there but the supply's not. I think it'll even out as we get past the whole part shortage of semiconductors and silicon chips. But I think from an environmental point of view and the interest, it's all pointing the right way for the environment.
I didn't know if that demand would shift over the next couple of months, because we're getting to that 3-year point on where a lot of the businesses are starting to release EVs because of the IK reduction.
Yeah.
And I certainly mine was around about that period. I know a lot of people, certainly in the iPace community, have all their cars are up for renewal in February, March time. So I don't know if that will feed in more of a supply into the market. But
I know from working with Drive Electric is that when people's leases are up and they want the next lease, if the car's not there, they'll extend the existing lease.
Yeah.
So, and I think that will happen not just with Drive Electric as a broker, but with all the leasing companies.
Let me start that one.
Right.
and that only records for half an hour. So.
Right.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that's certainly that's what I'm seeing. A lot of the iPace owners are saying we can't get a new car. I mean, there's a 12-month lead now on the base iPace. So, the HSE, the high iPace. There's that component shortage which is driving every place in the industry.
Yeah. We've leased through Reflex 3 or 4 Mini E's. And in fact, just last week I had a call from Drive Electric to say the car that was coming up for a customer, we've had to get in touch with the customer to say, are you okay if it doesn't have the standard sound system, which was the Harman Kallman sound system, because so it's just going to be standard speakers because they can't find the chips to put that sound system in. So if it just affects sound system, it'd be great, but obviously it's not. It's affecting other.
Well, the one I've heard a lot of people say is heads-up displays are incredibly short supply. And that's affecting things. And I know that at one point the iPace HSE was on hold. You couldn't actually order it, and that's because that's got the head-up display standard. So. But I think this is affecting everybody. I mean, but you can see why it happened. I mean, you can see why with the pandemic, people weren't ordering parts, so those companies spun back, and then they've got to spin back up, and some of them don't exist anymore. It's very tricky to get, and also the fires and the component factories as well. So it's a perfect storm. Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely, it's a perfect storm. But I think that's going to be a year, 2 years before that's settled down.
I think so. Yeah, definitely. And maybe it's going to be another 2 years before we start seeing perhaps a flattening of prices on the used market. But I see it continuing to rise.
Which is it's good if you've got a car you want to sell.
It is, and you see, as English men, sometimes we'll see a deal and we'll go, do you know what, we'll just wait a bit, wait for the price to come down. If you're thinking of waiting for the price to come down, don't, because you'll end up paying more in 6 months.
It's good advice.
See it, like it, afford it, buy it. Don't fanny around and mess about. Just do it.
And I think that's the same with waiting for the next model to come along as well. Things have always improved. I mean, we are in that age where we were 10 years, 15 years ago with computers. Every 3 months things are improving, and if you wait, you're going to wait forever.
And the whole motor trade's been built on the whole depreciation curve. Leasing companies are always looking into their crystal balls to see how much a Jaguar Alprace is going to be worth in 3 years' time. They can't do that. Well, they can, but I'm guessing the value is going to be a lot higher than what they predict. So I think the main winners will be the banks and the leasing companies, because the products will be worth more than they thought it was.
I worked that out based on what my lease is, and if it had been valued at the value I know that car will go for now, I would be paying a lot less money.
Yes,
Well, at least my company would be paying a lot less money. But that's the way it is. And I think that's a shift we're seeing more and more, is people leasing rather than buying. Certainly, I speak to a lot of people who are doing personal leases as well as company leases now, which is an interesting change in the market, I guess. How does that affect the second-hand market? Is that likely to happen there as well?
How do you mean?
Well, obviously, people are doing personal contract hire rather than buying new cars.
Yes,
But you can't really do that with a second-hand car very easily.
No. So there are some companies that do offer like used PCPs, but that tends to be sort of manufacturer based, and Nissan have done it. But with Drive Electric and Reflex, it has to be a brand new vehicle. Again, for basically the lender, the Lexus and the Auto and the Arvals of this world. Having an accurate figure on its future value if it's only had one owner rather than pre-registration.
Which I guess is a challenge.
But
I guess as you say, with used values going up and up, people are perhaps not going to be able to afford to buy used cars easily.
And that is an issue, but as you said, it's just the nature of the beast and the market at the minute. But from an environmental point of view, I think it's great that used EVs are
in demand.
The demand. I'm trying to always look at the positives, and it'd be great to get everyone on a low income into an EV. Of course it would, but I think it will even out as we go through time. But we've not talked about 2030. Of course, that's made everyone go, goodness me, I don't want my diesel in another 2 years. And most people do recognise, even if they're not EV nerds like ourselves, that their diesel vehicle will be less and less popular the closer we get to 2030, for all the obvious reasons. So the general public are aware they've got to make the switch, because they don't want to be lumped with something that's going to cost them a fortune to tax and fuel and everything else.
Well, Jonathan, thanks for your time. It's been a real pleasure talking to you, and we will definitely get you back on, because I want to talk more about Orkney.
Fantastic.
Come and visit you, do James. Good to have you back.
Thank you very much.
I think we've done as many of these as there's been shows.
No, too many.
But you've got a different logo on your shirt today.
Yeah, what did I have last time? Was it Eco Cars?
It was Eco Cars.
It was Eco Cars. Yeah, I've done a lot of work with Jonathan in the past, but now we're clearly electric vehicle mobile. So although it doesn't say mobile on here, that is the basis of our business now. So
And I think you're answering the other half of the question which Jonathan was answering, which is people ask me about how do I get used EVs, and then how do I maintain those used EVs? I don't really want to take them to the main dealers. I never take my car to the main dealers. I always go to a local garage, and there aren't any who do EVs.
No, so we're getting this a lot. We get a lot of people asking us if we can maintain their car and there's going to be no impact on the manufacturer's warranty. So quite a few cars now that we've got are brand new in their first year, their first service, and yes, there's a European law called block exemption, which means that you can have your car serviced anywhere by a suitably qualified VAT registered garage using OEM specification parts, and that's what we do. So so you're fine to have it serviced, and obviously we come to you. That's a mobile part of our business, so we'll come to your house and we'll service it on your drive, so there's no time out taken for it's more convenient, and that's what we're really playing on there. So we're making the whole experience of having your car service more convenient for you. So
And I've seen some of your YouTube videos of you travelling around the country doing this.
Yes. So one of the downsides to this actually is I will say to a customer, well, I'll come to you, you can carry on working from home, and then what I actually do is end up talking to them for 3 hours about their car, their solar panels, their solar panels and their power wall and things like that. So that's something I'm trying to move away from at the moment, but whilst trying to maintain the convenience of what we do. So
obviously at the moment clearly mobile is you, but you're expanding, and I'm guessing you're going to expand fast with the amount of interest you've got. Yes,
so we have got a new technician starting. We're just going through the ins and outs of that this weekend actually, because we don't often get time together like this. So we're going through the ins and outs, and he's looking to start sometime in November. Our waiting list at the moment is to the middle of November, so it's 2.5 to 3 months. So we do need to reduce that, I think going forward, we want to be looking at a month at a maximum, and I think that's where people generally work to. If people ring up, they're thinking about a month ahead for an MOT, for a service, and it's kind of acceptable. For me, I think that's where it should be. But when people contact us and I say it's 2 months, but we lose work from it. So we don't want to do that, and we want to be able to service as many people's vehicles as possible. Because ultimately, if we don't, we become a victim of our own success, if you like, and people will be saying, well, we can't get in. So we are expanding, and we are going to bring that waiting list down so as quickly as we can. So.
Because they might not get you then, which might be
which is interesting, because we discussed this, and I know that possibly some of our customers do want to have us based on our YouTube and Twitter presence, but ultimately our job there is to service their vehicle to a standard and give them that convenience factor. And so I asked some customers, I've asked quite a few, and actually all of them said, no, it's no problem. As long as I get a guy that's going to do the job properly, I'm happy. And that's, so I'm confident that going forward that'll be okay.
Excellent. So that's good. But I mean, I've seen some of the videos of work you do, and the standards you guys are doing is amazing.
Absolutely. So at the very beginning of this, me and Matt and David sat down, and the rules were quite clear. You never cut a corner, and you never fit any. I won't fit anything to a customer's car that I wouldn't fit to my own, and that rule tends to work okay for me. So I actively find myself talking customers out of having work done that they've been told needs to be done, and then I get there and say, no, you can leave that, that's fine. Yes, that does need to be done, that doesn't. And for that reason, that's what we think will work to our favour, and certainly from the customer's perspective, they've got confidence in the fact that what we're doing is right, and they'll be coming back to us because they know that we're honest, and that if we keep that integrity, that's what that hopefully will mean that our business model works perfectly and everything goes swimmingly. So I'm not going to deny there will be problems, and we've had a few issues with a few jobs, but it's the way we deal with those that makes it okay.
There's always problems, but it is how you deal with them. So if someone wants to get in touch with Cleveley Mobile, how do they do that?
So so it's mobile at cleveley.ev.co.uk, or you can email the office, which is info@cleveley.ev.co.uk. So easy as that.
Cleveley is CLEEVEL?
Yes, a lot of people either put one E or miss that E, so double E and the E between the L and Y. Yeah.
We'll put it in the show notes anyway. So
brilliant.
Find that. But so the other thing, obviously, James, you've been here as many times as I have. This has changed a bit, hasn't it?
It's amazing. I was a bit sceptical about it being outside, and I was a bit worried about the amount of people. But yesterday was completely non-stop all day, from about 10:30 to about 4:30 non-stop, and then today is proving to be even more busy than that. So
well, I noticed today they actually opened up a car park sector today.
Oh really?
So the flow in was a lot better. Obviously yesterday I think they had some issues with, as usual I suspect, the organisers of the venue didn't totally glue down as to how many people would actually turn up.
Yes,
and they all turned up at once in cars, and they couldn't get them in, and started causing chaos in Farnborough itself. I've said this before at Fully Charged, we've had the longest ever EV traffic jam. I think we definitely had the longest ever EV traffic jam.
Oh no, it's busy, and it's going really well. So there's a lot of different people from different areas of the market, so it's good to see.
What we were saying to Jonathan, it's fantastic to see all the manufacturers here. I mean, some of the big players who would never have come originally.
Yeah, definitely. When I looked at the plan layout, I was surprised. Actually, we didn't have anywhere near as that many manufacturers on the first Fully Charged. And slowly that's obviously got traction, and it's built, and I expect next year will be huge. Huge.
And obviously we've got test drives here as well, which is good. Really nice test track. They've worked that out really well. So
really good.
Good to see. And so what's your favourite thing you've seen so far? Because you've already got to stand much, have you?
My favourite thing, I quite like the face painting.
That's good.
God, I want to go down there so desperately, but I can't. but I think I'm quite keen on the classic conversions. So there's a couple of conversions down there. There's a guy called Chris Hazel that runs Zero EV. He's been going for a long time, but some of the kits he's making actually for retrofitting actually look quite good, and I think there's a market there.
I think that it's interesting, the retrofitting, how that's developed over time, because I remember when we were first looking at this way back, it was all Type 2, and now you can get CCS for your retrofits.
And talking to CCS, that's an interesting thing, because CHAdeMO ultimately is going to be cut away, so it's good to see that actually they're keeping up with it. But you've still got vehicles coming out which have CHAdeMO fitted as standard, which are brand new. And you've got the guys who are retrofitting kits, and they're up to speed with it, and makes you a bit frustrated. But
I think there's definitely going to be a market for retrofitting CCS to CHAdeMO vehicles going forward.
There is definitely a market for it to be fitted to a Nissan Leaf. So it's quite an expensive conversion, but I think going forward that will be something that happens.
So talking about conversions, you've done quite a few of those with battery changes in Nissan Leafs.
We've done umpteen now. I've lost count how many have been done, but the good thing is we're able to strip them and repair them to module level. We've done BMS faults, module faults, and also just straightforward swaps, which are relatively easy. So there's definitely a market there. Quite a few customers have come to me over the weekend so far and have asked specifically about upgrading their cars. And you've got people who are saying, well, look, the car's great. I can either spend 15 grand on a new car, or I can spend this much money and put a bigger battery in it, and that then becomes a car that works for me. They don't have to have a new car. They like the car they've got. They just want it to go further, and that's something we can help with.
It's interesting. I think that's a definite market for the future, because these cars will last a lot longer. I mean, we talk about how the parts last. I mean, Jonathan was talking about the fact that when he buys a car from the dealer, from the auctions, you don't really have to check much. It's unlike a petrol car. He hasn't got all these things he has to check. And you can just go and
I've had many conversations with Jonathan picking cars up from auctions, which I've done in the past, and he'll say the same thing: how does it drive? And the answer is always, it drives like every Leaf. They all drive the same. The only difference is if one's got a slightly flat tyre or something like that. That's the only thing. They all drive exactly the same. So and no problems. No problems.
It's crazy.
It is.
And that again leads into this whole thing about upgrade the battery in 10 years' time or change. I mean, people are always worried about batteries wearing out, but that's such a rare thing.
It is. There was the early Leaf with the Gen 1 battery, and they did have some degradation problems, but that's been largely mitigated with the newer type. And what customers I've got who have dropped a little bit of capacity, they've lived with the car for 3, 4, 5 years, and then the capacity has started to fall. But it's okay, because they know what their daily need is, and they actually know that the vehicle's still got more than enough range for them, so they're able to carry on quite happily, and they don't need to upgrade. They're happy with it. It's not something that is affecting that many people in the way that people like to think it does. You know, some people will be, the battery needs to go into landfill after 3 years, and it's just not true. It's just not true. No.
I mean, the whole thing about recycling batteries, I'm talking about a battery recycling company, and they just kind of get hold of batteries because they're not wearing out.
No, but I had a very interesting conversation with Ewan McTurk about recycling, and some of the methods being used are fantastic, where 99.9% of the original material can be reused, and that's good. And they've found some actually low energy intensive ways of doing the jobs which were quite energy intensive, so it's good to see that. He actually will have a video coming out soon about, I think he's done the video, but he hasn't released it yet, but he visited a centre where they're doing this at a university, and they're able to show exactly what they're able to do. But like you say, there's no batteries to be recycled as yet, so that's the problem. Why aren't they moving forward with it? Because the batteries don't need recycling yet. You know, and the ones that have come out of cars, people tend to whip up and put into home storage. You know, and they'll sit in a house for 15 years, again, not needing recycling. So
Amazing stuff.
So
I asked the same question I asked Jonathan. Where do you see the future? 1 year, 10 years?
In terms of EV uptake, I'd like it to be 1 year finished. You know, everyone's got an EV, but that's not going to happen. There's a lot of companies and people against it, which like to spread the FUD, which is unfortunate. But I think that within a year, the uptake now is massively accelerating, massively. I think in probably a little over 5 years, we'll be at a sort of a level with Norway now. I think I'd like to see it higher, but actually Norway and the UK are the biggest EV markets in Europe. In fact, Norway and the UK buy more EVs than the whole of Europe put together, which is incredible, because you've got some big countries, France and Germany, you know, and so that speaks volumes. You know, we're doing really well, but I'd like to say 5 years, maybe a little bit longer, we'll be at a point where actually EVs are very, very much run of the mill, and if you buy a diesel, it's either because you absolutely need one, or you're uneducated. I think that could probably be the only other excuse. So yeah, I think EVs and the EV technology is moving forward so quickly now, where charging speeds are literally down to 15 minutes, and most people don't need to charge on them speeds anyway, because they can charge at home. That they will just become just normal cars, and that's what it will be. It's just, what EV do you have, you know?
And that's something you help with, because you've got your channel as well, the James and Kate channel.
Yeah.
You and Kate doing the reviews, well, you, Kate and Florence.
Florence is there now, yeah. She's largely part of the videos. Yeah, we try to. We're keen on giving people a real world impression of what it's like to live with an EV, and it's great. There are lots of reviews out there which are very good, but actually a lot of people want to know about, can you get a kid in it, can you get a child seat in it, can you get a pram, a running buggy, you know, what's it like to use real world, and that's what we try to bring across. But we're also very honest about it. There's no point telling people that an EV will do its WLTP in the middle of winter, when actually it probably won't, and that's key, so that their expectations are set at the right bar, so that when a customer goes and picks up a car, they're not expecting a car that's going to do 250 miles when actually it'll do 220, because there'll be disappointment there and almost resentment from the off. But if you set the bar honestly, then actually they're getting what they're expecting to get. So we're very keen to get that across.
Well, I encourage people to watch your channel, because I love watching your reviews, and I've certainly made some of my educated decisions based on your videos.
Brilliant.
So we'll do that. And again, I'll put the links in the show notes for people to
Thank you, appreciate that.
But James, thanks for spending time with us again today.
No worries at all, anytime.
And we will get you back on at some point.
Brilliant, thank you. Cheers, Gary.